I was clinically dead for 17 hours. No light, no tunnel. Just absolute nothingness. And then I woke up. You know, most people think of a near-death experience as seeing a light, maybe a tunnel, or even visiting loved ones who've passed on. They talk about feeling peace, a sense of universal love, or a journey to another realm. But what if your journey was different? What if it was nothing? Absolutely, utterly nothing. A void so profound, so complete, that it makes you question everything you thought you knew about life, death, and what truly lies beyond. My name is Velma Thomas, and I was clinically dead for 17 hours. 17 long, silent hours. They say my brain had no measurable activity. My body had started to harden. My family had said their goodbyes and gone to plan my funeral. And then, 10 minutes after they took me off life support as the nurses were removing the tubes from my body, I simply woke up. No light, no tunnel, no grand revelation in the great beyond. Just a silence that was deeper than anything I could have ever imagined, and then a sudden, inexplicable return to the world of the living. And that, my friends, is where my story truly begins. Life before May 24th, 2008 was, well, life. I was 59 years old. Not young anymore, but certainly not ready to check out. I lived in Nitro, West Virginia. A quiet place. A good place. My days were filled with the rhythm of ordinary things. Morning coffee, perhaps a bit of gardening, definitely talking on the phone with my son, Tim. Oh, Tim. He's my world, you know. A good boy, always looking out for his mama. And my nephew, Daniel Pence, he's like another son to me, too. We were a tight-knit family, always had been. That was my anchor, my joy. I suppose I had some of the usual aches and pains that come with age, but nothing I thought was truly serious. Looking back, maybe there were signs, little whispers from my body that I didn't quite hear or chose to ignore. A little shortness of breath here, a twinge there, but nothing that screamed emergency. I was just Velma going about her business, loving her family, living her life. I remember that morning. It was just like any other. The sun was streaming through the kitchen window, warming the worn linoleum. I was probably thinking about what to make for dinner, or maybe wondering if Tim would call. Simple, everyday thoughts. I loved my independence, the quiet routine of my home. I'd spent years building this life, nurturing my family, watching Tim grow into a fine man. My heart, metaphorically speaking, was full. I poured my energy into them, into the small comforts of my home. I had a few friends. We'd talk, share recipes, complain about the weather. Nothing dramatic. Just the comfortable hum of a life well lived, or so I thought. I had plans, you know. Little ones like planting new petunias in the spring, and bigger ones like spending more time with my family making memories. I wasn't rich, I wasn't famous, but I was content. I had my people, my home, and a steady beat to my days. I was in every sense of the word present. Little did I know that presence was about to be utterly, completely, and shockingly erased for a very long time. It all started so suddenly, yet looking back, it felt like an eternity compressed into a few agonizing moments. The pain when it hit was unlike anything I had ever felt before. It wasn't a twinge, it was a vice tightening around my chest, squeezing the very breath from my lungs. A heart attack. The words flashed in my mind, even as my body screamed in protest. I remember stumbling, clutching at whatever was closest, the world around me beginning to tilt and blur. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced through the physical agony. I felt a desperate need to call out to reach for someone for Tim, but the words wouldn't come. My throat felt constricted, my voice just a raspy whisper trapped inside. Then came the darkness. Not a gentle fading, but a sudden, abrupt descent, like someone had thrown a heavy blanket over my head or switched off the lights in a vast echoing room. I remember the frantic scramble of paramedics, the flashing lights, the blaring siren of the ambulance as they rushed me to a local West Virginia hospital. There was a brief moment, they later told me, a slight heartbeat, a flicker of hope while they were performing CPR. But even that was fleeting. My heart stopped not once but 3 times. Each time a deeper plunge into the encroaching void. At the hospital, they worked tirelessly. I can only imagine the chaos, the determined faces of the doctors, the beeping machines. They tried everything they could think of to save me. I later learned they even induced hypothermia, lowering my body temperature, hoping to stimulate my brain to coax some spark of life back into me. But it was no use. For more than 17 long hours, I had no measurable brain waves, according to my doctors. No pulse, no blood pressure, no signs of life. My son Tim told the Charleston Daily Mail later, there was no life there. Can you imagine? To be told that about your own mother. My internist, Dr. Kevin Eggleston, confirmed it. There were really no signs she had neurological functions. He told ABC News. My family, their hearts breaking, gathered around my hospital bed. They prayed, they wept. They said their goodbyes. Tim, bless his heart, told the Charleston Daily Mail that he felt a sense of peace that I made the right decision to take me off life support. They had prayed and prayed, but he came to the conclusion I wasn't going to make it. My nephew, Daniel Pence, reflecting on that time, said, I said, God, just show me something. My body began to show the unmistakable signs of death. Tim described it chillingly. Her skin had already started hardening, her hands and toes were curling up. They were already drawn. There was no heartbeat. They had lost all hope. My family left the hospital, their hearts heavy with grief, to start making my funeral arrangements. They were planning my burial. My earthly existence, it seemed, was definitively over. My body was still cold and unresponsive. The machines had fallen silent. The breathing tubes were being prepared for removal. I was gone. And this is where it gets strange. When people ask me what it was like, what I saw, what I felt during those 17 hours, I have to be honest with them. There was no bright light, no tunnel, no ethereal music, no reunion with departed loved ones. There was nothing, absolute, profound, complete nothingness. It wasn't a dark that you can see like in a pitch-black room. It was the absence of sight, the absence of sound, the absence of feeling, the absence of thought. It was the complete cessation of being. Imagine falling asleep, not just a deep sleep, but a sleep so profound that you don't even dream. Now take that concept and amplify it 1,000,000 times over. There was no me to experience anything. There was no time. 17 hours, they said. But to me, it could have been a second or an eternity. The concept of duration simply didn't exist where I was. There was no consciousness, no awareness, just a void. A quiet, immense, peaceful void. There was no pain, no fear, no sorrow, but also no joy, no warmth, no love, just absence. It's hard to describe the experience of non-experience. It wasn't frightening. Fear requires awareness. It wasn't lonely. Loneliness requires a sense of self. It simply wasn't. My doctors said I had no measurable brain waves. Tim said my skin was hardening, my hands and toes curling up. To all intents and purposes, I was gone. I was just a body lying on a hospital bed waiting for the final physical steps of disconnection before being prepared for organ donation. And then, deep within that boundless nothingness, something shifted. It wasn't a light, not a sound. It was more like a whisper, a distant, almost imperceptible tremor in the fabric of the void. Not a feeling, because I still had no feelings, but perhaps the suggestion of a feeling trying to take root, like the smallest, most fragile seedling pushing against an impossibly heavy stone. I can't say how or why. It defies all logic, all medical explanation. Dr. Eggleston later said, "There are things that as physicians and nurses we can't always explain." I think this is one of those cases. It's a miracle. The odds were certainly against her. That whisper grew infinitesimally slowly into a hum, a vibration that wasn't sound, but awareness attempting to form. It was like trying to recall a dream that slips away the moment you wake, but in reverse. I was trying to form a dream to create a sense of reality out of absolute zero. There was no effort involved, no conscious decision. It was an involuntary, organic process, like a forgotten breath returning or a dormant seed suddenly sensing the pull of the sun. It was the most profound mystery I have ever encountered, this transition from absolute nothingness back to something, anything. The first sensation was not one of sight or sound, but of pressure. A gentle, insistent pressure against my skin, and then a faint, cool breeze. It was disorienting. Where was I? What was this? The void had been absolute timeless. This new state was fragmented. I felt something being moved, a faint tugging sensation. I later learned this was the nurses removing the tubing just 10 minutes after I was taken off the respirator. Then a distant murmur. Voices. Not clear, not distinct, but a hum of human presence. And then a strange internal surge. It felt like a flicker, a spark reigniting inside a cold, dark engine. My arm. I felt my arm. It wasn't a conscious decision to move it, not at first. It was more like a slow, deliberate unfurling, a reawakening of muscle and nerve. My nephew Daniel thought it was just reflexes. Perhaps it was at first. A mere twitch, a ghost of movement in a body they believed was gone. But then, the cough. A rough, dry cough that tore through the stillness, a gasp of air, forced into lungs that had been quiescent for so long. It was an explosion of sensation of reality. My eyes fluttered open, the world swam into focus, blurry at first, then sharpening into the sterile white of a hospital room, the worried, astonished faces of nurses bending over me. Their gasps, their hurried movements, the sudden flurry of activity. They were shocked, truly, deeply shocked. And I was just as shocked as them. I was alive. How? Why? The internal fog was still thick, but through it a single undeniable thought began to crystallize, burning bright amidst the confusion. A name, a face, my son, Tim. Where was he? I remember the words forming on my lips, raspy, weak, but insistent. Where is my son? That was my first conscious request, my first coherent thought. The world had gone quiet for 17 hours, and when it roared back to life, all I wanted, all I needed, was him. The nurses, bless their hearts, scrambled. They hurried to call Tim, who had left the hospital just a few miles away on his cell phone. He told the Daily Mail later that they told him his mother was moving and had a heart rate. Can you imagine the call he received from planning his mother's funeral to being told she was moving and had a heartbeat? the sheer whiplash of emotion for him, for all of us. The room was buzzing with a frantic energy, a blend of disbelief and cautious hope. I felt like a newborn rediscovering every tiny sensation, every sound. The feeling of the hospital gown against my skin, the faint hum of distant machines, the smell of antiseptic, each one a miracle. When Tim walked back into that room, it was a moment I will never, ever forget. His face etched with exhaustion and grief, just moments before transformed. Disbelief, then a glimmer of hope, then raw, unadulterated joy. He rushed to my side, tears streaming down his face, and held my hand. I squeezed it back, my strength returning with every beat of my heart, every breath I drew. The reunion was silent for a long moment, just the two of us connecting across an abyss that no one could explain. The weight of 17 hours of presumed death of funeral plans lifted in that one embrace. It was as the sources described, nothing short of a miracle. The doctors, still stunned, couldn't offer an explanation. Dr. Eggleston, the internist, admitted that some things just can't be explained by medical science. He called it a miracle, a case where the odds were certainly against me. I was minutes away from being prepared for organ donation when I woke up. Imagine that. I walked away from it with both my organs and my life intact. My recovery was slow but steady. Every day was a step forward, a rediscovery. The world felt brighter. Sounds were sharper. Tastes were more vivid. I looked at Tim, at Daniel, at my family, and saw them not just as loved ones, but as precious, fragile gifts. Every conversation, every shared meal, every quiet moment became infused with a new profound meaning. How could it not, I had, in a sense, come back from truly nothing? This experience, this inexplicable return, has changed everything. Before I lived my life, I loved my family, but I took it all for granted in the way we all do. The mundane, the routine, the assurance that tomorrow would come. Now, there's no such assurance. Every single moment is a gift, a blessing that was almost taken away forever. I cherish the small things more deeply now, the warmth of the sun, the scent of fresh rain, the sound of laughter. I find myself looking at people differently, recognizing the spark of life in them, a spark that I know firsthand can just vanish. My relationships with Tim and Daniel, already strong, have deepened immeasurably. They saw me at my end, and they saw me return. That kind of shared experience, the raw vulnerability of saying goodbye and the sheer joy of reunion binds you together in an unbreakable way. We talk more openly now about everything, about life, about death, about the mysteries that lie beyond our comprehension. They marvel at my story, and I marvel at being able to tell it. I still don't have the answers to what happened during those 17 hours. Was it a glitch in the universe, a divine intervention, a medical anomaly that defies all known science? Perhaps it was a combination of all of them. What I do know is that I was given a second chance at life after what should have been the end. And I intend to live every single day of it with gratitude, purpose, and an open heart. So, what have I learned from my journey into the quiet, immense void and back? It's not about seeing angels or heavenly realms, though I respect those who have. For me, the profound truth wasn't in what I saw, but in what I didn't see. It was the realization of the absolute fragility of life, the thin veil between being and non-being. It taught me that existence itself is the most extraordinary miracle. When you've experienced the total absence of self, the complete quiet, you return with a searing appreciation for every single sensation, Every single connection, every breath you take is a testament to the incredible, complex machinery of your body. Every loved one's face you see is a precious, fleeting image. My message to you, if I can offer one, isn't a lecture. It's a heartfelt realization from someone who shouldn't be here. Don't wait for a dramatic near-death experience to find meaning in your life. Don't wait for everything to be taken away to appreciate what you have. Look around you right now. Feel the air on your skin. Listen to the sounds. Look into the eyes of the people you love. Tell them how much they mean to you. Live fully with intention, with kindness. Because even when the world seems ordinary, the simple fact of being alive is in itself the most extraordinary miracle. And sometimes it takes going beyond to truly understand that.